So what we're going to talk about today is the critical role of visual evaluation. So one of the problems with visual evaluation is everybody sees color slightly different, but also the biggest problem is you don't have any controlled lighting, okay? So what it's trying to do is improve time to market, align physical and digital. I talked yesterday about digital, all right? Before you can get to the stage of digital, you got to have visual, because everything goes back to visual. I don't care what digital says. If it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good. But what you got to do is make sure everybody's looking at it under the same light source. So every light source is going to change an object. Makes it look different, okay? Improves quality, compliance, and optimizes speed. So what it's doing is you're going to define the color. Visual still king, like I talked about. You got to have controlled lighting. Certificate and calibration, that just means that the lighting is consistent every time, because lighting ages over time. Operator, color, vision, we'll talk about that. And then some of your standardized visual assessment procedures. Defining color, visual's king. First, in order to see color, you have to have a light, illuminates an object, and then somebody has to see that illumination, okay? If you change any part of this, you're going to change what the object looks like. All right, so let's say I go from a cool white fluorescent, which is what you normally see in a department store, to outside, and you have the same object. It's going to change. You might not always see the change because it's not abrupt. But if you have it in a light box and you switch it, you'll see that abrupt change right quickly. By the way, if I don't have one of those, I don't have color, okay? Why is king? First of all, everybody goes back to visual. They're going to decide to purchase based on visual. That even goes into the packaging world, where if I put something on the shelf and it visually looks different than the rest of the product, they believe there's something wrong with that. So that affects their decision to actually purchase the product. You got your automotives, of course. This is king in the automotive industry. What the automotive industry does, by the way, you'll notice a normal light box is just about this big. All right, what they do is they have what we call harmony rooms. A harmony rooms is they'll have the top of the light boxes in a big room with the surround a neutral gray, and they can actually drive the car into the surround. So they're actually creating their own light box. But it is still using controlled lighting. Same thing I talked about here in the stores. The importance of controlled lighting, okay? By the way, from a colorimetric point of view, from a color world, when we say daylight, we do not mean outside, okay? Because daylight here today in Nashville is totally different than daylight in Southern California today, totally different in North Carolina where I live, okay? That's not controlled. From June to July to January to February, the daylight changes. So it's not a controlled lighting. It's going to change based on where the sun is and the stars. So you got to have some type of controlled lighting. Warm light, that's generally your household lights. Cool white fluorescent, you've probably heard of that. That's in a lot of your office buildings. And then daylight. Now when we say daylight, of course, it's a controlled daylight. This is what we call a spectral power distribution curve, okay? So X-Rite does not control this. This is a mathematical representation of a light source. So a group based in Austria, the CIE group, they're the ones that come up with this. So if you use our equipment, use somebody else's equipment, it says daylight, it's the same. It's just a mathematical equation. This is your fluorescence. The spikes are your fluorescents. There's different fluorescents. Depending on where you're at, could be in the States, could be in Europe. And then your incandescent, this is your old household light. This is how old I am, used to read the paper. You turn on your incandescent light, your paper goes orange, red. That's what an incandescent light is. So the higher you see these spikes here, the more of the color is in the light. So let me explain a rainbow. What a rainbow is just water droplets in the air, right? So the daylight hits those water drops, acts as a prism, and it actually separates daylight into all the colors of the rainbow, because daylight has all the colors of the rainbow in it. And then you got your LED lights. Now, in the past, most light boxes use fluorescent lighting, fluorescent tubes. A lot of countries, especially over in Europe, are outlawing fluorescent tubes. They're not allowing you to have them anymore. So what you come up with is now LED lights. So not only do you have an LED, what we call an illuminant, which is mathematical representation of a light, but you also have LED lights. So we got a light box called the Judge LED. It's using all LED lights that recreates each one of these. Not all sources are the same, even the names are the same. So even in daylight, there's D65, which is a bluer light source, tungsten halogen. These are all representation of daylight. So just because you go buy a daylight bulb doesn't mean you're buying the same daylight bulb. So you got to have some type of control, which is what this is. Lighting certification and calibration. If you buy a light box from us, we would certify it, even come on site and do it, to make sure that the amount of energy that's coming and the color that's coming off those lights is the same as consistent. Most of your big retailers, whether it be in paint, plastics, textiles, inks, are specifying what light source you have to use. So if you're going to be a supplier to them, not only do you have to look at it and make an evaluation of a certain light source, but if you have software, you got to use that illuminant in that software. Preventive maintenance, just make sure it's good, it works, it's certified. We measure and document the light color temperature, is what I was talking about. And then you have all these ISO certifications. This is what I'm talking about is a harmony room. So these are the top of the light boxes that hangs in a room that has a neutral surround, and so it is illuminating whatever's in there, just a big sample. Light boxes like this one, obviously you can't drive a car into those. Not all people see the same. Some people here would see blue and black, some see white and gold. I don't know which ones you see. This was a thing that went around years ago, okay? 1 in 13 males is color deficient. Color blindness is a bad word. All right, 1 in 13 males is color deficient. That means you are deficient in one area of where you see color. So all we have is in our eyes, the back of our eyes is color detectors. We see in the blue range, we see in the green range, we see in the yellow-red range. Generally, when there's something wrong with you, on average, most 1 in 13 will have a red-green deficiency, okay? Females have a better shot of being color normal, but still 1 in 300 females is abnormal. To be colorblind, it's about 1 in 33,000. That means you don't see any colors at all. But it's not rare at all to be color deficient. Now, the only way you can actually test this is take some type of color vision test. This is what you had in grade school. You should see 2 numbers here. It's a horrible way to do it, by the way. All right, this first number is 6, second number is 2. Now, if you don't see one of those, that means you're color deficient in one of these ranges. Now, if you are color deficient, you can't fix it. Nothing you can do to fix it. So let's think about, I don't know, Walmart's one of the biggest companies out there. If you want to work in Walmart and you're in color, like I said, everything goes back to visual, the first thing you have to do is pass the color vision test, or you're not eligible to be in that department. You know, I couldn't be an accountant unless I had my CPA. It's the same thing. But you can't fix this. You can keep studying for your CPA. You can't study for this. Color discrimination, this is what we use. This is a Farnsworth-Munsell hue test. So I would put each one of these separately in a light box. You mix them up, and then you put them in order. And then on the back side of these, you got a number you're scored on it. All right? Generally, if you're normal, over the time, if you're looking at colors, you get better. Your color discrimination gets better. But if you're abnormal, it's not going to get any better. And then you're scored, so that's somebody who is superior. This is somebody who has a yellow-blue deficiency. Okay? We go out to companies all the time and we do these. I got one company where they bring customers in and we just do these tests for their customers. You'll be surprised how many people fail who are making color decisions. Okay? Standardize. In anything you do in color, you have to do an SOP, standard operating procedure. I don't care what you do, whether you do it visually, you do it digital, you're measuring, everybody has to do the same thing. The problem is, even if I'm using like a spectrophotometer and I measure something, just how I measure it and where I measure it could change what I'm looking at as far as the numbers. Same thing here, okay? Number one, you gotta have your light box certified and make sure it's normal. Specified surround color. If you think of your eye as picking up energy, so if I'm holding a red color here, I cannot take out all the energy that's getting to the back of my eye. It's gonna change what I'm seeing. So in a light box, you got a neutral gray. So when you put it in a light box, that's not affecting the color that you're seeing, okay? Think about a Rubik's Cube. If I had those colors all mixed up and I had a blue here and a blue here or a brown here and a brown here and they were surrounded by different colors, each one of those would look different to me. Even if I measured them, they'd be exactly the same because we are affected by what we see in our field of vision. This is the neutral gray that we use, and this is what's inside a light box. So if somebody's doing a harmony room, they're making everything, the floor, the sides, the ceiling, a neutral gray. Standardized viewing angle, what that means is if I have any type of gloss texture in a material, if you got a flat sample and you got a glossy sample, you see a lot of people do this. They're trying to take the gloss off because it's angle dependent. If I have a piece of plastic that has different gloss levels on it, it's the same piece of plastic, all those gloss levels look different to me, okay? Because we're seeing it at a 45-degree angle. If I had it at a 45-degree angle, I would see the differences. Gloss is an optical illusion. It's something that's happening at the surface, just like texture is an optical illusion, okay? That plastic's not changing. It just appears to change by what's on it. So when you look at it in a luminaire, you're illuminating from 0. I'm looking at it at a 45-degree angle. That shows us color and appearance, which is how we see color. If you change it, okay, you can change it from 0 to 45, which is still 45 degrees. You always want to look at something at a 45-degree angle. Assessors with known color discrimination tested yearly. I disagree with that. Let me tell you why. Generally, most people are tested every 5 years. Because if you're looking at color and you're working with color, you get better at looking at color differences the more you work with color. So generally, you're going to see a difference. So you'll go from normal to superior if you're looking at that. So you actually get better at looking at color differences. Doesn't mean that your eyes got better, your determinations got better. By the way, when you take color vision test, all right, put it in order the first time, do not change it, okay? If you stare at it and you change it, you will get worse. Your brain starts mixing those colors together. Okay? Same thing if I have a standard and a trial, you make it a color determination very quickly because if you stare at them too long, they'll start mixing together and they look better. You've got to have properly light, what light source, the object, what you're looking at, and then the observer. So this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, light, object, observer. By the way, when we use spectros and we use software, all we're doing is recreating this mathematically. Okay? Any questions on any of this? Pretty much that is a quick color theory on what we're doing. Okay, we are obviously have all this software. We have color theory classes. I've been teaching it for 27 years with X-Rite. So I'm a color expert, just moved into sales. But if you want to see a light box, we actually have one of the LED light boxes in our light box at booth 325. All right. This is how you can contact us. All right. We do have something I want to mention. I mentioned it yesterday. If you go to our website, xrite.com, there's something called My X-Rite. My X-Rite is how you communicate with us. You don't even have to have a product. You don't have to be a customer. All you got to have is an email. You fill it out, you can get anything you want as far as information, show you what all our stuff is, and it'll get you in contact with somebody. Any questions?